In the opening of the book, they say, like, drawdown is the moment where the CO2 or the GHGs go down. And I'm like, I never even thought that that would be allowed. I am so excited for the interview that we're about to bring you all. It's with someone I've literally been trying to interview for over a year. Her name's Katharine Wilkinson, and she was the senior writer on the book Drawdown, which I think is one of the most important books that's been written about the climate crisis. And when I read this, it gave me so much hope. Katharine's in the studio right now, and I'm so ready for this interview. Let's do this. Thank you so much for sitting down and agreeing to do this interview, because I know that you are a writer, researcher, TED Talk speaker, so I'm just so honored, and I think I've been wanting to do this for over a year, ever since I read this book, so thank you.
I'm so excited.
I absolutely love reading this book because it was the first time that I read about the climate crisis and I felt hope. So will you give the audience just the 101 and what is Drawdown and what they would find inside of it when they read it?
Absolutely. So the word drawdown means the point in time when greenhouse gases in the atmosphere stop rising and begin to decline. That's basically the turning point in addressing the climate crisis. And that is a really critical turning point for life on Earth, because it's that rising concentration of gases that's trapping heat and causing the climate to change and causing the climate crisis. Our work at Project Drawdown is to help humanity have a resource for solutions. So what are the practices and technologies that can actually help us reach that point of drawdown and turn things around?
Hold up. Before we go any further with Katharine, I want to give you all an inside peek into the actual Drawdown book so you'll get what we're talking about. Inside Drawdown, you'll find 100 solutions for addressing the climate crisis. From technology as obvious as wind turbines and rooftop solar, to more common sense approaches like building walkable cities and investing in bike infrastructure. Every solution is presented with the amount of CO2 saved, the amount it would cost, and the amount of money it would eventually save. And Drawdown really looks at every aspect of our society, from transport, buildings, food, and energy, offering all of us a roadmap for solving the climate crisis. So where were you able to source those solutions? Are they already things that are happening around the planet?
These have to be practices and technologies that are already in hand, right? Not someday maybe if Elon Musk figures it out, right? They're here, they're now, they're scientifically valid, they're economically viable. We just need to bring them to much greater scale.
So one of the things that really surprised me when I was reading the book was that women and girls was actually a really big solution. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, when we think about the intersection of gender and climate, it's complicated. But there are kind of three big areas. One, the impacts of climate change hit women and girls first and worst, particularly if they're contending with poverty. It's because it makes existing vulnerabilities more challenging. But if you're close to the impacts, you're also close to the solutions. Second, gender equality is a climate solution, and that's what we highlight in Drawdown. So access to education, access to high quality voluntary reproductive health care. When girls and women are able to make choices about their lives, it turns out that there's positive ripple effects for the climate. And then the third area is really around leadership. The climate crisis is also a leadership crisis. And what we're seeing in this moment is girls and women and non-binary leaders step in and really lead differently on climate change. Lead with a sense of building community, with a sense of emotional intelligence and collaboration and a real commitment to justice.
And that's amazing, just thinking about like a Greta who just emerged as a climate leader. We're kind of seeing that come to pass in 2018, 2019. So it is really cool that you're calling for that, and we're kind of living it in the present moment, which is amazing.
It's incredible to see just the rising up of youth who are so courageous, they have so much imagination, and they're so insistent that we simply do what science tells us we have to do.
Are you personally an optimist? I mean, you're working with this data every day. I think a lot of us want to put our heads in the sand and go, it's going to be fine. But you're dealing with it every day. I would love to know, are you still feeling good? Are you scared? Or what should we do? Where should we feel?
Yeah. So I really, for me, what this work gives me is a sense of determination. If we didn't know what to do, if we didn't have the tools in our toolbox, if we didn't have the solutions, that is serious cause for despair. But we actually do have incredible solutions. We definitely need more innovation, but we're ready to roll. And what our work actually shows is that if we just used the solutions that we already have, we could reach the point of drawdown, and we could get there before the middle of the century.
The day we hit drawdown, I'm just gonna give you a big high five.
Big party.
Well, when I read that, when like in the opening of the book, they say like drawdown is the moment, like you said, where the CO2 or the GHGs go down, and I'm like, I never even thought that that would be allowed. Like I just was like, it was always like mitigating risk, like let's start defending ourselves against climate change. And what this does and why I love it and why I'm so excited to talk to you is like it completely flips it on its head. And I think in one of the opening sentences it says like this is an opportunity for us to change our way of life, to live in a more in alignment with our planet, and this really outlines that. And I think we'll all be better off because it's not like before climate change we were actually happy with all the systems that we had. Climate change has just highlighted those problems for us.
Totally. The things that are causing climate change are also causing health issues. They're causing injustice. Like as you were saying earlier, we have an opportunity to build a better world in the process of addressing emissions. And I think that for me is what's really exciting, that we can solve for well-being and equity at the same time that we're bringing human society back into balance with the living systems of planet Earth.
Well, you talk about the equity and justice aspect because I think that's a huge part of the climate conversation that people kind of skip over. Why is that so important?
It is really critical that we move solutions forward in a way that actually heals systemic injustices rather than deepening them. I think it's important because it's simply the right thing to do, but I also think it's important because it's the politically effective thing to do. If you're talking about trying to really build a groundswell of, commitment and excitement about this, probably just talking about greenhouse gases is not going to get it done. I mean, that's basically what we've been trying. Hasn't worked. But actually, when you realize and you think about climate in this much more systemic and entangled way, you start to see that actually there are other things that may be top of mind for people that would bring them to this movement. And I think that's exactly why we're seeing the growth that we're seeing right now.
And do you feel like we have to compromise a lot of the ways that we live now, like consumerism, materialism, in order to live in alignment with the planet? Because sometimes that's like the internal like feeling that I have where I'm like, I want something new. And then I'm like, wait, no, you don't need that. And like, I feel like I have a lot of bad habits that I've acquired through my life that if I want to be better, I should change them.
I mean, I think this is one thing that's worth noting is that Drawdown is an extensive list, but it is not a comprehensive list. So there are things that are hard to put numbers to, like reducing consumerism, that is absolutely a huge climate solution because everything that we have, has been manufactured. Materials have been sourced, it's been created, it's been shipped. There's a lot of impact there. So actually it's interesting that I'm wearing this. One of my commitments this year has been to try to do no new clothing.
I love that.
So this is a ThreadUp fund.
That's amazing. Because that's one of the things as I've been, learning more about climate and you're like, okay, I can start composting, I can recycle. And now I'm like, wait, I'm buying all this new stuff. That's kind of where I'm at right now, which I think everyone's at different phases of like learning and changing and no one needs to do anything overnight, but I've been having that thought process too. One thing we're going to be thinking about in the decades ahead is that we have a huge rising middle class happening in like places like China, India, and in the developing world. Is there some concerns that if they adopt our consumption habits, then we'll kind of lose our chance to fight this?
Yeah, I think, the real bummer is that we've done a great job of exporting consumerism around the world. And that is a culture that has taken hold and is certainly a challenge when it comes to climate action. At the same time, I think it is understandable that people want a better quality of life, right? Particularly, like you're in a hot place, you want air conditioning, you want refrigeration. Like this is all really reasonable human stuff. And so I think the really critical thing is to try to move solutions forward that can address some of those needs without having so much of an impact on the planet.
Right.
Things like distributed solar and microgrids instead of pushing a fossil fuel grid.
Totally, it's almost like leapfrogging technology, and we've seen that with a lot of developing countries. They have cell phones. They never had wired phones.
Totally.
They just went right to the cell phones. It's like, go right to the solar, like, don't pick up the coal.
Yeah, and there's still over 1 billion people on this planet who don't have access to electricity. Wow. So climate solutions are also incredible solutions for human well-being and economic development.
What I do love about this, again, is that you're showing us it doesn't have to just be doom and gloom and like this dystopian future. We can have our cake and eat it too in a lot of ways, but with a little bit of a value change.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, sometimes climate action can feel like this sort of like draconian assignment, right? But actually, if you think about the purpose of human beings. Like, I really believe that our mission as humanity in this moment is to build a bridge to a future that is climate safe and livable for future generations. That's like the most meaningful work we could possibly do in our lives. And I think that's actually incredibly exciting. And if I give a few things up along the way, that's okay. I also think when you give some things up, you make space for other things.
For sure. I love this. And I think that a lot of times the mainstream, you know, conversation around this is really missing that point, and it's getting bogged down in politics and all these things, but I think that we're seeing that with the younger generation. They're kind of like cutting through the BS and they're like, I think we need to save the planet.
Yeah, and what I love is that I think they're really calling for all the folks that are kind of just on the sidelines, right? The bystanders to like step into the work, step in and like help us do what science tells us is necessary, become solutionaries.
Solutionaries?
Yeah.
Hashtag. I love that. That was actually the perfect lead up to my next question, was like, how do you get people to step in? Like, the series that I host is called One Small Step. It's all about that.
Yeah.
Do you have one step, a mindset, anything that people can take away from this?
Yeah, so obviously I would suggest that people check out the book. Or check out, there's a ton of information on our website.
Library.
Get it from the library. Drawdown.org also has a lot of content. One of the really big things is just to talk about this. So even though we know how critical the climate crisis is and how much we desperately need really bold action, a lot of people aren't hearing about climate day to day. They're not talking about it with their friends or family. They're not talking about it in their workplaces. So helping to break the silence is really good. A lot of times people are like, oh, what can I do? And we kind of give them sort of lame lists sometimes, right? But my feeling is that we need everyone's superpowers in this movement. So, like, are you an incredible journalist? Great, we need that on climate, right? Are you an artist? Perfect, we need that. We need teachers, we need lawyers. Everyone has something to bring to this. Think about what you want to do at home in your personal life. Think about what you can do professionally, and think about what you want to do in the public square. Maybe next time there's a climate strike, you want to join it.
Going on the list, because we know we have 100 in here, is there one like specific thing? Like, you mentioned food waste. Like, that's one thing that I've also been thinking about a lot. I'm like, wait a minute, I have something in my fridge. I don't need to go buy something. It's just crazy to me that I wasn't making that connection before. So something like food waste, is there anything else that you think are low-hanging fruit that we could all adopt?
I'm personally a vegetarian, and that has been a really important way for me to kind of get grounded in my values every time I eat. But it doesn't have to be becoming vegetarian, right? It can be opting for one of these new fancy non-meat burgers instead of that burger that you were thinking about, right? It can be, well, maybe I'll do sort of plant-based food, breakfast and lunch, and then I'll eat what I would normally eat for dinner. That's one that's like, you know, you can do that really quite easily, and you can do it today.
I cannot recommend this book enough. I stan you guys on my Instagram all the time. So, Katharine, thank you so much for coming in. I really enjoyed this conversation and I learned so much. So everyone check this out, and thank you.
It's my pleasure.
I hope you found that conversation with Katharine as informative and as inspiring as I did. For one, today I'm wearing a shirt that I bought at a secondhand store, and I packed a plant-based lunch, so Katharine's getting through to me. If you guys want to learn more and really go in-depth on the Drawdown solutions, you can head to drawdown.org, where all of them are listed on their website with even more information. If you enjoyed this, please share it, like it, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you all next time. Bye. Saving the planet, one meal at a time.